Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us on this latest ECA Learning Zone webinar. Today's presentation is all about the connected home and considerations for installers. Today's presentation is brought to you by ECA Commercial Associate Legrand, and we're delighted to have their training and BIM manager, Matt Crunden, and their sales manager, Laurence Turner, who will be your main presenters today. We've also got ECA's Energy Solutions Advisor, Luke Osborne, who I will hand over to shortly for a brief introductory few slides. But before I do that, I'd just like to remind you that you can use the questions box on your screen at any time during today's presentation, and our presenters will try to answer as many of these as possible at the end of the webinar. Today's session is being recorded, and a full replay will be available on ECA's YouTube channel. That's at youtube.com/ECA Live. Be sure to also check out our replays from the entire ECA Learning Zone series so far, covering all sorts of technical and business topics. And with that said, I hope you enjoyed today's session, and over to you, Luke.
Thank you very much, Omar. Yeah, good evening and welcome. I'm just going to do a short piece at the beginning here because obviously you guys hear from me a lot. So it was just an introduction into smart homes, and obviously you have a more in-depth section on the automation from Matt and Laurence in a second. But as we're quite aware, smart homes have gained in popularity. Some of you have seen these slides in the past, and people have organically been inviting these into their homes, inviting the smart technologies in through like speakers, smart thermostats, lighting, and security. So lots of security lighting is starting to be available with the smart capabilities. It's filtering through into smaller standalone devices as well. And when YouGov did a poll recently as to why people are taking on these devices, you can see the reasons here. I mean, a lot of the functions were, or the reasons why, were that they made people's lives easier. They're more convenient, and also you get lots of technology lovers as well, so they become the early adopters. But the convenience factor is really starting to filter through, and people like the word of mouth carries this a lot across as well. And smart homes, all the technology is starting to become a lot wider. So you're getting a lot more automated blinds and shades, heating and cooling, solar PV and storage starts to link in with these things, your entertainment systems, your lighting, all the environmental control, even monitoring air quality, etc., etc. I mentioned security a second ago, but your fire systems as well, and also the connectivity of the electric vehicles and being able to manage the loading of the building. And there's some really key features as well that smart homes and smart technologies can offer. And that's a reduction in energy, which then helps to reduce a building's carbon footprint, the financial savings that are attributed to that as well, and also an increase in safety, not just the monitoring and the security, but being able to turn off devices remotely or sense when something's been left on too long. As you can see, the straighteners picture there in the bottom left-hand corner is a prime example, and that's one of the reasons why my wife insisted that we had a smart. She insisted, honestly. It was a good use case for having a smart socket in one of the bedrooms, so that we can, or she can, go on and remotely turn these things off when she thinks she's forgotten, and enhanced security as well. So that was a brief run through there. And what I'll do now, I will hand you over to Matt and Laurence, and they will take you through the ever-expanding realm of the smart buildings. Thank you very much.
Hi everybody, I was just giving it a second there just to make sure that everybody can see the screen in front of you there. Thanks for the introduction, Luke, and for the invitation to join everybody today. Hope everybody's well. I'll just introduce myself. So I'm Matt Crunden, I work for Legrand Electric Limited. I look after training, and I also look after building information modelling as well within Legrand UK. I've got my colleague Laurence with me today. So Laurence, could you just introduce yourself to the audience, please?
Yeah, of course. So hello everyone, I'm Laurence Turner. I'm one of the sales managers over at the Legrand User Interface Business Unit. we look after the all of the automation and smart control products that Legrand produce. I look after essentially all of the electrical contractors and the electrical supply chain that are supporting these products now. So that's me.
Wonderful, thanks, Laurence. So just a brief slide on who we are as a business, just in case you don't know. So we're Legrand Electric Limited. We're a French-owned company headquartered in a lovely town called Limoges in the middle of France. We employ about 37,000 people over the globe, and we turn over in the region of about 7 billion euros per year. But a big focus that we have is on the advancements of technology, and particularly in the smart home arena. On the slide in front of you, you can see the structure in the UK, 6 distinct business units. And the one that we're focusing on today is this one, the user interface business unit. So this is where we have the door entry products, the home automation products. This is where our smart home offer sits within this environment here. And one of the focuses we have really within the group is a specialist program called ELIOT, which stands for Electricity and the Internet of Things. And of course, we're talking about smart home requirements here and so on and so forth. So that actually sits very nicely with this particular program. This is our governing program within Legrand that allows us to focus development and sales and marketing and so on that connected devices space, which is, as we know, as we understand more and more now with the way things are, the way the world is now, it's a vastly increasing and becoming an ever popular area, and not just linked to homes anymore either. It could be expanded further than homes into office space and our everyday lives when we go to work and so on. Even though most of us are working from home right now, you know, this is kind of the future. So we're going to talk about these things today on the slide. I'm not going to read all of that stuff out to you. You can see that in front of you, but that's mainly what we're going to talk about. We've got a little agenda, as you can see, that's going to help us navigate that landscape. And we begin with a simple question. Well, why a smart home? Well, there's a lot of things going on in the world right now, as we know. You know, the world is changing, isn't it, at rates that we've not experienced before. And we're connected. We're super connected to every single area of our lives like we never were before. And you only need to look at our current situation. You know, many more people working from home, using Teams or Skype or Zoom to carry on connecting with people all over the globe, whether it's for work purposes, streaming live exercise classes or music classes, or just keeping in touch with loved ones. And when we take a look at the words on the slide there, and there's just a very small selection of words now that are everyday language, but if you consider 15 years ago, maybe 10 years ago even, most of the words on that slide would not be in everyday conversation. But we're having conversations with all people of all different levels and in businesses, at home, in schools these days, all around these things. And every kind of market's embraced digitization now. We only need to look at the way that we consume our media, you know, from newspapers a few years ago to tablets and connected wearables. And all we need to do now is just ask our voice controlled device and we'll get any type of information that we desire. You know, a little tip to the future here, just wait till artificial intelligence begins to take over this space as well. So there'll be some huge changes on the way then. But it's not just that area as well, it's general communication. Look at the way our telecommunications have changed over the years. You know, we've got these folding phones now and so on. So this space as well, even our cars, you know, even our cars now are part of this digital revolution, offering smart technology and functionality to almost everything that we do as part of modern life. So why not a smart home? As I said, the world is changing, but this drive that we're under now, digitization, if you like, you know, all these smart aspects, the connected aspects, it's a real push towards smart cities. And they're not a thing of science fiction anymore. They're not a thing that might happen in 20 years time or 30 years time. They're happening right now. And connected homes, smart homes, whatever you prefer, are an absolute key element of this, whether we like it or not. But it all begins with smart connected products, because we can't do this evolution to smart cities without beginning with smart connected products. So smart connected products are the evolution to the smart connected homes, linking together the home, the community and the city. So if you look at the graphic on the right hand side of the smart cityscape, you know, we're experiencing all of things right now, and the smart home on the right hand side of that graphic is a part of that evolution. And Luke mentioned before, the way we do things right now is kind of like this. All of these different things going on. We can have a smart connected kettle or a smart connected socket or a light bulb, you know, and that's absolutely fine, because as you can see on the slide, they're readily available, wide choice of products. You can buy them off your typical web shop these days. But there are some disadvantages on there as well, as you can see in the, you know, the column there in the middle of the screen. And it's not really, it's connected here, but it's not really connected. Is it smart? Is it not smart? Laurence, do you have a comment that you'd like to make on this?
Yeah, I mean, it's a really interesting area we get into when we start talking about these disparate devices that each individually will control certain aspects of our homes and of our lives. And really, what we need to consider getting away from is having everything as an independent component, and start talking about bringing things together, bringing things to work in ecosystems, to work in combined groups, because ultimately what that's going to do is give us all the ability to sort of really lean into this as a new market, as a new way of taking advantage of this sort of huge opening that we're seeing now. And I mean, one of the things we've got on here is, as far as advantages goes, is down to readily available and a wide choice of products. And that's true when you're a consumer, and it's absolutely fantastic that we've got really easy, readily available products that are of a huge choice when you're a consumer. But you know, we're here today talking to the ECA, so we're all professionals. We're looking to create a market that we can all be profitable and provide a good solution to customers. And actually, we need to think about whether those things being readily available in that way, where anyone can get hold of anything, is really the right choice for us as a market. And do we want to take control of this, take some ownership of it, so we're offering our customers the best solution? Or do we want to just offer anyone anything that they can get their hands on that might, in a couple of years' time, because they change their phone, so they have a completely different ecosystem, no longer work in the way that was originally proposed? So these are the questions that now we need to start asking ourselves, moving away from this IoT disparate kind of way we're doing things into the more systematic infrastructural way that we're looking to do things going forward.
Yeah, that's great explanation, Laurence. Thank you. And there's one other point I'd like to bring in at this particular moment, which is the drive to net zero. And you might think, well, what's that got to do with the smart home? Well, actually, if you think about the targets that have been set, 2030 and 2050 targets, so that covers all new buildings net zero by 2030 and all existing building stock in the UK by 2050. So massive targets, but one of the key drivers for those is energy efficiency. So if we can drive energy efficiency through the use of the smart home, but we're talking about system approach here, which is what Laurence was explaining, that's one of the key drivers. So there's a great opportunity to get involved in this area, linking into those key takeaways from the net zero targets as well. So let's talk a little bit about lighting and automation. Okay, we get through to the bones of the actual presentation itself. So, you know, here's a traditional home on the slide there. You know, we got red circuit, blue circuit, green circuit, lighting, blinds and fans. And we've got a typical consumer unit serving the electrical installation. Lighting's operated via traditional switches. You can have extractor fans that can be incorporated. You could have some blinds as well. And that's all fine. But what can we do with it? We can turn the light on and off. Brilliant. Not much else. We can do some dimming. We might have some hardwired blinds, you know, that's about it. So with a traditional home, a traditional approach, there's not much control that we can have bar turning lights on and off and, you know, a little bit of extra switching and some dimming here and there. When we look at a smart home, but just let's say just a basic smart home in terms of functionality, we can do a whole lot more. So you can look at the bullet points on the slide there, and you can begin to appreciate some of the additional things that you can do. So could you elaborate on that a little bit, Laurence?
Yeah. So obviously, in the previous slide, we saw the standard way that we're connecting our homes that allows us to just do our standard on-offs, some dimming, etc. If we move from that kind of protocol, that kind of infrastructure, into either a new infrastructure, so we're running a different sort of cabling, or into a new kind of protocol, so we're using a different kind of wireless connectivity to bring these things together, we can really expand on not only the ways that we can physically control things, so up and pressing buttons and controlling things from there, but we can actually really bring in new ways to interact with our homes and have our homes interact with us and begin to act independently of our own input. And this is like a force multiplier in the amount that we can have as far as saving, particularly with energy savings, but of course energy moves into finance, because that's the way things work. If you save energy, you're saving money. And so we can both create a really easy to use, comfortable home that is actually more affordable to live in and easier to get along with. So that's the kind of things we need to consider when we're talking about the way we control our homes moving forward, and the change that we want to see going forward with that kind of thing.
Great, thank you, Laurence. And we've just got a couple of graphics here just to give you some idea of how that would work. So, you know, here in this example, we can control single areas such as, you know, a couple of lighting circuits, perhaps in the pantry and kitchen area. So that you'd have a singular room control using the smart home scenario, but you've also got multi-circuit control as well. So in this particular example, we've got lighting circuits in 3 different rooms, but with just one switch, or groups of blinds perhaps, but again with just one switch. So with a traditional way of doing things, you'd need multiple switches all around the house, no control over those apart from walking up to it and pressing the thing. So this gives you a lot more independence in what we do, and it's making things easier in our lives, which is one of the, I think it was the highest value on that YouGov survey that Luke showed us before. You know, here we can control some blinds, as we've got there, some south-facing blinds as well. But you've also got whole home control, so every circuit from one switch, and perhaps you might position that by the front door, which would give you in effect a last man out switch, or a whole house off or a whole house on type of scenario, so that, you know, you press that button by the front door and every single lighting circuit shuts down in the house, so we don't leave lights on anymore. Because lighting houses and not being in them and heating spaces are 2 things that we do really, really well. But they're very, very inefficient for the way that we live. So if we were to then bring some extra functionality in terms of scenes, could you just explain a little bit around that, Laurence?
Yeah, so we looked at the previous examples that we had there, and those are all huge upgrades on what we already have. So rather than having lots of different switches, lots of different components that have to be fitted, having to figure out all the different ways of switching those, so running your cabling in just the right way to ensure that you could do those kind of things, moving into the new way of controlling a home with a new infrastructure would mean that is a really easy way to set up a home. Moving on from there, where you're having to press a button to have multiple circuits react. What you can do with scenes is actually combine a whole load of functions together from, in this instance, the press of a button. So not only can you turn all the lights off and bring the blinds fully down, but you could maybe press a button and have the heating come to a certain level, and have the blind go to a set level, and your dimming come to another alternately set level from there. And these can be completely customized. And this is the thing that we're seeing now amongst customers who are leaning into this market of smart speakers and IoT devices, is that people want to have more control. People want to be able to do these kind of customizations of their home themselves, so that they can enjoy it in the way they want to enjoy it. They don't necessarily want to have frequent visits from a specialist to change minor things. So one of the things that we really should be thinking about as professionals is how the experience we give to our customers. And that experience really nowadays should include the ability to customize these things themselves and build on these kind of really intelligent controls in a way that's easy to change as time goes by, as the weather changes, as the seasons change. So we need to be considering these as aspects of what we do as we move through into this new type of the modern way of controlling the home.
So we're talking about complete user personalization, aren't we?
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah, perfect. So it's so far away from the traditional home that we showed at the beginning. And there's a couple of examples here that we can show you. So this would be a good night example of scene control. So the system's been pre-programmed to respond to the good night command on whichever user interface device you were using. It could be off a tablet or a phone as well. So it'll activate the blinds to close. All of the lights will go off except for the bedroom lights, which will dim to a preset level, maybe 40 degrees. 40%, sorry. And whilst all this is happening, the same scene control can adjust the heating to a preset level. So, you know, in the example there, it'd be 18 degrees. So there's a small example there before a pre-configured scenario turns all the lights off. You might have a morning example, a morning scene that could be set. In the morning scene, at the touch of a button, the blinds would open, the bedroom lights activate to 50%, the ensuite lights come on, the audio is activated, so you get your favorite choice of music playing throughout certain areas, certain zones of the house. We adjust the heating up to 21 degrees as well. As you can see, nice and simple, music comes on. And we could also have a welcome home scene as well. So a welcome home scene. When you come back, blinds up, kitchen, living room lights on, comfort settings on the heating, all very personalized to the user, however you want it to be, pre-configured, and it just makes life so much simpler for you to do that kind of activity. We also have an away setting as well, so this would be the reverse of the welcome home scene. So here the blinds would come down, the music switches off, and all the lights would switch off. And the heating would reduce to a nice comfortable setting for us, maybe 16 degrees or something like that as we go through. So hopefully that's nice and clear in the way that we've just displayed those scenarios for you there, demonstrating that scene control. So if we talked here about bus control wiring, and I'm going to ask Laurence in a minute to just explain that a little bit more for you, but this is where we're talking about a bus control wiring solution. And what you'll see there on the right hand side is we've got a smart home control enclosure, as opposed to in the very first example of that diagram we showed you, there was a consumer unit, wasn't there, just running the, you know, the lights and the heating and so on. So here we've got your smart home control enclosure. And from that enclosure, as you can see, we're coming out with a dedicated bus technology, providing our link through to all of the componentry throughout that particular installation. So Laurence, could you just explain that a little bit more?
Yeah, so certainly. So what you can see here is the evolution of how a wired home is developing and where we're evolving towards. We'll come on to, actually there's loads of different ways that we can achieve this and achieve the kind of control we want. This is a really fantastic way of doing it to help simplify and give the most function that you might want in a home. Running a dedicated wiring infrastructure will give you the ability to expand as you go through, because you know the kind of wiring that's in a building. It gives you the ability to have additional functions and controls that you might not have from, say, a wireless option. And it gives you the reliability of having a cable from point to point. A lot of when I talk to contractors around this, it's a little bit scary. It puts people off having to change the way they've wired things for a while. It certainly does throw up questions of, right, well, how am I going to do it? I learned a different way. Why do I have to do this differently? But actually, when you get into it, when you get into the guts of doing this, this actually turns out to be quite a lot simpler than if you were wiring in a traditional way, if you haven't already wired for that kind of procedure. So in this instance, you're running all of your cabling back to a single point, not having to figure out, two-way switching or three-way or four-way switching on different points, not having to keep a track in mind of what everything is doing, because you simply run everything back to one place, and you can then really easily just get in there and finish off the components once you're in the cabinet. And that then equally allows you to adapt and change as you move through, because you could run emergency cable, or you could expand as the build was developing. But it is a different infrastructure, and it is something to consider when you're getting involved in this kind of thing, if a new infrastructure is the right way to go, or whether or not some of the new wireless products that are coming onto the market are the right choice for what you're already doing, because there's been some fantastic developments in the wireless space that hopefully we'll be able to explain to you in a moment, that mean that we now are able to, as professionals, offer the full spectrum of installation to a customer. We don't have to specifically narrowly guide them in one direction, because either we don't have the skill set to do a fully programmed wired system, or we don't have the stability in the wireless system that we've got already so we can offer both essentially in the new way that we're able to do home automation.
Thank you, Laurence. And in fact, Laurence mentioned wireless control. So we've got an example here. We've called it radio control on our slide, but essentially it's the same thing. So we've got a traditional kind of setup here. We've got the consumer unit, and we're wiring out from this point here, but this is radio control wiring. So could you just elaborate a little bit on this scenario here, Laurence?
Yeah, so in this scenario, we've actually got an installation that is completely traditional. So we've either come to a home that needs to be fully retrofitted, or we're working for a developer that refuses to change their wiring infrastructure, refuses to add into any additional complexity that isn't already in that install. So in this instance, we've got a product that's able to provide for a fully conventionally wired lighting system, and then we can add on, because of this intelligent little box you see next to the consumer unit, that creates what's called a Zigbee network, a Zigbee mesh network around this property. So each device you add on allows for this mesh network to grow and expand and become stronger. And these are the developments we're seeing in the wireless space within automation now, is strong mesh networks that enable you to not only have a really nice app experience, controlling all of your circuits from an app without needing to run any additional cabling, but could even allow you to have, as you can see in this top right hand corner here, a fully wireless control. So for instance, if you haven't got any cable run to the two sides of the bed and they want to have bedside switching, you can add this really easily with some of the new wireless components that are available on the market now, without having to do any remedial work at all. It's literally a case of upgrading their lighting system to be a smart one and adding wireless components on the back of it.
Terrific, thanks, Laurence. So we're really covering all aspects with a combination of the different systems that are available now on the marketplace.
Indeed.
Okay, so we talk about making scenes even smarter now. So we looked at the basic functionality of a smart home. We looked at adding scenes, but we can make these even smarter by adding variables to the scene. So variables would be, is it daytime? Is it nighttime? These kinds of things. And we can add preset conditions to the system before a scene will react. So it could be, example of one, Laurence, raining perhaps, weather conditions.
Indeed, yeah, weather tracking, geolocation. There's a huge range of ways that we can enable our home to start working for us. And you've seen on the previous slides, we've been talking about interaction with switches and controls, and that's never going to go away. There's always going to be a place for people to want to touch a button and have a thing happen. But what we can do is start allowing our homes to really pick up that slack and just do the things that you want your home to do. So if it's going to rain and you want to pull your awning in, you should be able to allow your home to control that independently, and you not have to, when you're maybe on a job 10 miles away, you've got no idea that there's a sudden rainstorm or it's going to rain. Your home should be enabled to react to these things and save us having to replace items and increase the amount of tech waste we produce, or save us having to have remedial works at our homes because we've left a window open, or we left some Velux windows open, for instance. These are all things that we can do by making our scenes more intelligent and smarter, as we've put here.
And also, in terms of the user interface device that we're using to make those control in the home, we've also got some lovely touchscreens available on the market screen now. So the touchscreens have almost an unlimited flexibility really in what we can do, and they allow us to control all of the lights, the blinds, the heating. Perhaps we've got HVAC systems involved, audio, scenes, but we can also control video door entry on these kinds of systems as well. So very aesthetically pleasing to the eye, as per the little picture that we've got on there as well. So there's a question at the top of the slide: why would I choose a touchscreen over a standard switch? So why would I, Laurence? Why would I choose a touchscreen?
Well, I mean, ultimately it comes down to what you want out of that device. If you're in a kitchen or in a high traffic area of your house, for instance, you might want to be able to look across the whole home and see what rooms are being heated and what rooms aren't. You might want to be able to trigger some music to come on in different rooms at a really easy point that you can get to and have total control. Because ultimately, the more devices or the more intelligent we become, the more devices we actually desire and want to have on our systems. So that in itself means that we should have a more functional point to be able to control these things. And whether that's mobile on your phone or on a tablet that you have traveling around, or whether that is physically in one place, so you know where something is and control it easily from there.
Fantastic. So Yeah, I think most of the things that Laurence has just explained are also just detailed in the bullet points on the slide here as well. So we won't dwell on that particular one at the moment. And of course, the most important factor that people tend to want these days is having that app control or having that voice control, and that kind of functionality. It's just becoming these days everyday life to us, isn't it? Really, if we've got smarts
Yeah.
around the home that we can connect with and engage with voice commands and so on. So this is
it's becoming a seriously impactful and pivotal part of a lot of our homes now, having this kind of central point where we can have a really easy, quick snap of an answer to a question or a request for something to happen. I don't know if you're about to mention this, Matt, but there, you know, I believe it's 2024. They're anticipating that 50% of all internet searches are going to be done via a voice control or a voice assistant of some type. And considering the amount of internet searches that are done, that's a huge amount. And so we really need to look at both how all of our systems integrate with these devices, and also whether we want to fix ourselves to one, or whether we want to actually work with a third party that can operate all of them. Because if we decide to go with a single infrastructure, say we choose Google's as a point, that's really great, because we're able to have a nice central point. We're able to, you know, with Apple, for instance, the aesthetic is the same across the piece, and so people can really appreciate that. But what happens when in a few years' time you decide to change your phone because you're sick of the latest update that you've had with iOS or something like that? You would potentially, if you go with one of these aspects, lose a whole raft of features of your home, the place you live in, because you've chosen to change a £1,000 device. So what we really need to consider is, actually, do we want to work with one of these big three, or do we want to work with a party that can command the kind of that has the ability to work with all of them at the same time and give the same experience across the piece?
Thank you, Laurence. And there's a couple more really cool things that we can do these days as well, and geolocation is one of them. It might be familiar to some people, it might not be for others, but geolocation, for example, in this particular scenario, could activate a coming home or a welcome scene. Can you just quickly just explain this one, Laurence?
Yeah, sure. So geolocation tends to be a measurement of distance between one point and your phone, for instance. So you can have in various systems, you can have them record where you are relative to the server, and then that would allow you to say, when I get a mile away from my house, I want the heating to go down to frost protect. And I want the blinds to come down and the gates to lock, etc. These kind of things, and vice versa. When you're coming home, you can have these trigger to perform different activities. So you can have, when you get 100 meters from your house, you can have the gates open, or you can have your driveway lights turn on, for example. So geolocation is another aspect of things where we can start allowing the home to interact with our daily lives, rather than us having to interact with the home to perform all these activities. It can really allow a fully intelligent home to begin to interact and change the way that we live.
And here's the kind of example that Laurence mentioned in terms of maybe a driveway. And here we've got some conditions. As you can see, the weather forecast is foggy. Turn on the driveway lights to enable us to see the house as we approach. So we can put conditions in there: foggy, snowy, cloudy, whatever it might be. So as we approach, the lights come on. I apologize for the very basic graphic, but it was the best that I could do. under the circumstances. We've also got push notifications as well that can add some elements of security to a connected home. So again, Laurence, could I just ask you to just expand on that for a moment?
Yeah, and we talk about security in a lot of times as far as protecting us, but actually there's other ways that we can view security. There's peace of mind when we talk about security, and that could be setting this to if you had a loved one in that wanted to live independently, you could have a push notification set to come to your phone if they don't turn their bedroom light on, for instance, by 8 o'clock in the morning, or if they don't turn the kettle on by 7 o'clock in the morning. And all this push notification could be is call mum. And then you could give them a call, make sure everything was okay. She says, yeah, it's bright, there's no need to turn the lights on or anything like that. And these start to give you that peace of mind, that security that you can look after your family whilst they're in their own home, not impinging on the independence that they've been used to for a very long time, but you have that peace of mind and you have that ability to be secure in that sense. And then there's the pure protection side of things. So you can see here some great examples of facial recognition that you can have integrated into some cameras these days and into various different devices. This enables you to be informed if someone you don't recognize comes onto your property, and you can even then react to that to say, okay, turn all the lights on and play something through the speakers, and ideally that would scare someone off, and then ultimately you could get to the point of having a connected alarm and security system whereby if your alarm goes off, you can have various other functions start to trigger off the back of that. And these all come from being able to have a combined cohesive system installed, because disparate and individual devices may well be advertised really fantastic features, but if they don't all talk together properly, and if one takes 2 minutes to trigger when the actual triggering event has happened, because it needs to go through various different steps and various different clouds to actually make this happen, then it's really as close to useless. So what you need to really consider when we're talking to customers about connected security is how deeply connected can we get, and how quickly can we trigger these events. So in a lot of ways, it's better to have your security system on a separate network and in its own separate little world, because it can respond quickly and it can respond actively to what you want it to do, then have the rest of your home controlled in a different way. But there are all sorts of ways we can start building these together once we start thinking about smart home and smart products, without the need to go down the route of bringing in various specialists to do this, where we end up paying huge amounts out of pocket to have people come in and play around on a laptop for a couple of hours.
Great, thanks, Laurence. But in terms of lamps and motors, what can we control? Well, all of this stuff here you can see on the screen we can control with the smart home these days. And in terms of motors as well, left right motors for curtains, maybe blinds for the up down, and the heaters as well, the fans. So all of those things can be controlled now very, very easily with the systems that we've been talking about. So let's just quickly talk about heating as well. We've got lighting, got automation, and of course heating. So a traditional heating system, it's a boiler, it's a pump, it's a selection of radiators, temperatures controlled via a single room thermostat over there, but pretty much all we can do is turn it on and turn it off, and that's about it. And we're really, really good, aren't we, at heating empty spaces these days? So bringing some smarts into play is a really good thing to be able to do. So with this smart home heating, it works a little bit differently. So in our example here, we're adding thermostats into each room that can be wall mounted perhaps, or they can be digital displays on the radiator stats themselves. So what you can do there is each room can then be independently controlled, each room. So we're no longer heating spaces that nobody is in, which is a real waste of money. But imagine every home doing that and wasting all of that money. It's quite a lot when you tot it all up. So we can do independent control, giving a real ability to have an independent and a personalized control over your entire house. Of course, that can give you many benefits in terms of maybe cost saving, because you're only heating the spaces that you want. And as I've said, huge amounts of money is lost each year in people's homes by heating these empty spaces. But we can even bring the smart concept to that area by doing extra functionality as well with some of the bullet points that you can see on the screen there. So Laurence, do you have any thoughts on the smart heating side of things as well?
Well, it's one of the it's somewhat of a mystery to some of us in the electrical trade. People don't really want to get involved in heating because of the conflicts that it brings up with plumbing, for instance, etc. One of the key things that we can that we really want to promote and lean into is the idea that you don't have to go ecosystem all the time. You can actually have a really intelligent system that works using a very standard, very traditional boiler setup, and even wet underfloor heating setup. There are various devices that can control electric underfloor, though electric underfloor is quite often more restrictive than wet can be. But ultimately, all we need to do as the electrical professional is be able to trigger the heating to come on when we need it to. And once we can trigger that properly, and we can read into these different rooms the different ways that we want it to react. So there's an example here on the screen in the image on the bottom left of the home reading its own what's called thermal inertia to know when it needs to turn the temperature on, devoid of input from us. So it develops an idea of how quickly or how slowly the home heats and cools down, and then responds in its own intelligent way to ensure that we either get the most comfortable or the most economical way of heating the home to that degree. So these are things that we absolutely couldn't achieve with the old way of doing thermostats, of one downstairs or maybe one on the downstairs and one on the landing. That's when we start. We were beginning to become really intelligent when we had two thermostats in a home. No, not anymore. We can have rooms independently knowing how long it takes them to heat up and triggering the boiler at the exact time that they need to then heat up, which means we get a much more even heating curve in the home, and ultimately can reduce our costs by up to 30%, which is a huge impact to the amount of money we spend heating homes and the amount of energy we waste when we're trying to heat homes properly.
Smashing. And in terms of what can we control, well, all of these things on the screen here. So it's a whole wealth of controlled equipment there. But we can also control cooling equipment as well, as you can see. Overhead chill beams and air conditioning units and fan coils and so on and so forth. So if we just touch on audio very quickly. We can incorporate audio into the connected home. As we know, it can be controlled via a scene or via your app on your phone or your tablet as well. So any quick comments on the audio, Laurence? I think this is probably the area where most people are familiar with, aren't they now?
Yeah, and it's always difficult to get a quick comment from me regarding integrated audio, it being my background and bread and butter. But really, this is where we move from the bean counting of automation and the actual the what you might call boring stuff if you weren't a very good salesman into what we actually want from our homes. We not only do we want a place to live and sleep and be warm and not get attacked during the night, etc. We want to have a place that we can enjoy being in, particularly when we're stuck indoors for a year straight. like we have been. And who knows when it's going to happen again, hopefully no time soon. But we can start really building in all of these fantastic new ways of entertaining ourselves into quick one click or one command functions that just give us so much scope to really enjoy the places we're living, not only live in them efficiently.
Wonderful. So we just come to the end really in terms of summary. Well, we've kind of got a case study that we've got in place of a summary really. It's a project example. This is Roman House in London. So as you can see from the screen, a luxury residential complex in the heart of the city. There were 90 apartments, 37 different interior layouts from studios to 3-bedroom penthouses, £1 million plus apartments in there. And the products in here that they wanted were from your basic wiring devices, but through to touch screens and scenario controllers, premium applications really that included the complete home automation. They also integrated here the control of the underfloor heating, along with the lighting, along with the AV systems, along with the blinds, and along with the access and security systems as well. But they didn't actually stop there. In the penthouses in this particular example, they included the air conditioning control, complete home data networks across all functions of the home, and really that's the power of the connected home, you know, really in situ or in action, if you like. It's totally integrated, it's intuitive for the homeowner, and it controls everything from the lighting to the temperature, security, entertainment, and really it helps us to improve the way that we do things around the home, the way that we live in our homes these days. And that's again alluding back to the top level result from the YouGov survey that Luke showed us right at the beginning. So, you know, in terms of summarizing, I think we've said it on the previous slide, but we've talked about lighting. We can do extensive lighting requirements for people's smart home requirements now. All the temperature that we can control, energy saving as well to factor in, and the audio that Laurence clearly loves more than anything else, I think. Anything that you'd like to add for the audience in terms of summarizing, Laurence? Or
no, I mean part of the reason that I do what I do and what Legrand employ me to do is to enable us as electrical professionals to take advantage of this new market and not leave this to either a specialist or to a mass market online marketplace to ride roughshod over us as the people that actually install the infrastructure of homes and have installed the infrastructure of homes for the last 100 years as far as electricity is concerned. And we can all do these systems now. We can all get involved. And there's just some quick things to look out for. You know, make sure we've got UK or local support that you can rely on. Make sure that the ecosystems that we're installing are interoperable and can control and can integrate third-party devices if needs be. And make sure they're easy to control from the customer's perspective and easy to customize. Gone are the days where an intelligent system was one size fits all. You had to deal with the functions that you were given, or pay extortionate amounts to have those functions changed every now and then. So we're really moving into a new world of control and moving actually away from the idea of a smart home as being a unique object or a unique thing that we live in. We're just going to be living in homes. We're going to be in the place that we live, and that place is able to do all sorts of intelligent things without you having to think about it or having to get involved in. And like we said at the top, this is a direction that the market is moving. This is already happening. We're already seeing most of these changes come through. And this is great for those of us manufacturing these devices. But if you're not out there already considering whether you install these and whether you get involved in these, I would really strongly recommend looking into it in some depth and getting involved in some training to get you some more information to help drive in this direction, because it's going to be the way things go. It's going to be the way we live going forward.
Wonderful, thank you, Laurence. And actually, in terms of some training, you can visit our website at the top there, www.legrand.co.uk. We do actually offer free smart home system training, door entry training as well, so you can take a look at that on the website. And this is just a few website addresses to further your learning or information for if you wanted to.